Hello, and welcome to this first overview, where you'll be able to follow along and really understand the results from your recent online survey. What we're presenting to you is the pathway to your own personal success, how you can leverage what you've learned, your knowledge, and how you can leverage it as you operate within the workplace, interacting with companies, interacting with other people, and specifically your manager and your primary teammates. I'd like to begin with this concept of success. I mean, that's really what we're all trying to accomplish. And the path to real success begins at the exact place where what you know how to do, that is your education, your knowledge, your background, your experience, where what you know how to do routinely intersects with what you love to do. Now, you've known people who really enjoy their workplace efforts, and perhaps you, in a previous opportunity, and certainly you have known people who really hate going to work. It's because they're not operating at this intersection of using their knowledge in a way that they love to do it. So that's our goal in this entire process, is to give you an understanding of yourself so that you will be really clear on what it is that you love to do. As we go through this, we'll be presenting two critical performance components that are drawn from your recent online performance survey. By now, you will have received both of your reports. The first one is the Workplace Driver Report, which we're going to discuss in this tutorial in detail. And the second one is the DISC-style behavioral report that we will discuss in the second tutorial. Both of them focus on the second part of this equation, understanding yourself, understanding the opportunities that will resonate with you, what you're passionate about. And if we can help you align your natural passions with your endeavors in the workplace, you will have a very successful and a very happy career. We'll begin with an objective scientific view of your primary workplace drivers or motivators. You'll hear this term a lot, so I want you to understand that what we're talking about here are the components that reflect what is really important for you, because we always focus on the things that are important to us. And then we'll explore in the second tutorial how you use your natural DISC behavioral style to deliver and communicate those things that are important for you to the other people who share your world. It's really just that simple. Step one is always to understand yourself. So if knowledge is power, self-knowledge becomes power squared, because you will really understand yourself, what's important to you, how you naturally want to communicate with other people, how that squares with other people, and how you can use this information to your best advantage. We begin by looking at the 7 common human motivators. Now, all human beings share these 7 motivators. The difference between us is the strength and/or the hierarchy of these motivators in our particular makeup. So we're going to look at the relative importance of these 7 motivators that include your overall attraction towards having harmony and form and beauty in your life. Very important for some people, not so important for others. Money is the second motivator. Again, for some people it's very important, for others not so important. Personal freedom, the ability to do what it is that you want to do, personal power and control over your current situation, the motivator of helping other people, the altruistic motivator, the one that deals with the rules, that is, how structured are you, and finally, the pursuit and the use of knowledge. Very important for some people, and certainly for some of the engineering positions, this knowledge motivator, this theoretical motivator, is very high and very important. We'll also be looking at a way to help you understand and discover your hierarchy of the 4 natural human behaviors that we all share. So what we're looking at here is really like ingredients in a recipe. All of us share these 7 human motivators, and we all have some degree of these 4 natural human behaviors, which represents how dominant are we, that is, how assertive are we, extroversion, that is, how outgoing are we, socially comfortable are we, what is our level of patience, is it very high or very low, and what is our overall conscientiousness, our focus on compliance, our focus on structure, detail, accuracy, analysis, etc. All of these are measurable in a very accurate way by these tools, and we're going to show you how to read your own reports so you will understand how this works for you. We'll begin with the 7 motivators. Now, this work was done at the turn of the century by 2 very talented men. Dr. Gordon Allport out of Harvard University really refined this work in the 50s and identified that all of us have a common set of motivators that are important to each of us. It is the relative importance that becomes critical in understanding your particular set of motivators and how they influence your overall, what we're going to call socialized behaviors, which is how the rest of the world views the actions that you take. So we know that superior performance is supported when your workplace drivers, that is your highest ones, are satisfied by what you do. If your duties will align with your particular driver hierarchy, you're going to have more passion, reduced fatigue, more inspiration, and increased enthusiasm for your workplace efforts. So let's take a quick look at these 7 workplace drivers or motivators. The first one is the aesthetic. And please understand that each of us have some component, some strength of each one of these motivators in our particular makeup. The aesthetic motivator is all about form, harmony, beauty, and balance. The economic one is about money, practical results, and a return on the investment of your time, your effort, and your energy. The next one is the individualistic motivator or driver. It's all about independence and uniqueness. People with high scores there, they need to be independent, and they're always looking for unique ways to do things. Some environments allow that, some environments don't. You see where we're going with this. It'll be much easier to pick the environment you want to work in if that environment aligns with your particular motivational set. And we have developed a series of benchmarks for each of the 6 engineering models identified by this particular study. The next one is called political. It is the measure of your desire and your need for control, for personal power, and for influence over other people. Important for some, not so important for others. The altruistic one is next. That is just that, the desire to be of service to others, to help others. You can see how there could be a conflict between having a high altruistic and a high economic or a high individualistic. but it might be supported by political. So you can see there's all combinations that can work together to create a unique pattern that is yours alone. The regulatory driver looks for structure, order, routine, the rules. And finally, the theoretical driver is the one that seeks knowledge, just for knowledge's sake. I want to know, I want to understand, I want to do. And the key word really is knowledge and understanding. The key to appreciating your particular ingredients in your cake and what your driver cake mix looks like is the hierarchy. Each of us is influenced by some degree by each of these 7 motivators or drivers. It is the strength and the hierarchy of each of these factors that serves to identify how you will seek to prioritize your actions. 45 years of research into the workplace drivers confirms that we are attracted towards, drawn towards, and very interested in people, places, and things that reflect our highest scoring workplace drivers or motivators, without a doubt. It's also interesting to note, and an important component for you to understand, that we're also not attracted, drawn towards, or interested in people, places, or things that reflect our lowest scoring or subordinated workplace drivers. The workplace drivers really set the stage for how we're going to deliver our socialized behaviors. And remember, this is how the rest of the world perceives the way in which we deliver our decisions into the world. So let's take a look at your Workplace Driver Index report. It looks like this. Please turn to page 5 of that report and print that page 5 in hard copy. You're going to need to understand 2 things about each one of your 7 motivators. The first one is what it actually measures, what it is, and then what is the strength of that particular motivator, and where does it fit in your overall hierarchy. You're going to want to know what is your highest scoring one and what is your lowest scoring one. Going to be very helpful to you as you understand yourself. You'll see on page 5, and yours will look like this. This is a sample, of course. Yours will be different, but it'll be using the same modality. It has levels of strength here for each of the 7 motivators. If you have a very high strength score, as this sample does here in the political motivator, it means that it's going to be very active and influential, and it'll be in place in virtually every decision, every action this person takes. If you have a high strength, this strength level is often active and influential in many situations, as opposed to virtually every situation. There is the average strength, and it reflects a balance or a factoring of the influence of the other, either higher or lower scoring motivators that will either amplify or mitigate the influence of this particular motivator. Their next level down is low strength. This strength reflects a lesser influence for this motivator in the decision-making process in many situations, because it will defer to either the higher or the very lower scoring drivers. And finally, the very low score. This strength has very little active influence on the decision that the person's going to make, but it does make its presence known by its absence. So this is really a key consideration. It's not just the super high scores that you need to understand. You also need to understand your lower scoring ones, because very low and low scores can amplify the higher scoring ones and make them even more powerful as they're presented into the world. This next slide will expand on that. It's called standard deviation, or how do I compare to 68% of the general population. Now, a standard deviation is just that. You'll notice in each one of these measures here, there's one of these gray boxes, but they're in different places. That's because what it measures is the 68% of the general population falls within this box. And because the means and the median scores are different for each one of these motivators, the boxes will be located in different places. Each of the motivators has its own scoring model, but the standard deviation works exactly the same way. It keys off the norm. The norm is the middle score. So if you have 1,000 people, you measure the entire score, and 500 above and 500 below, that numerical number is called the norm. The standard deviation looks, because it measures 68% of the population, it looks at half of that number will plot between the midpoint and the lower end, and half of that population number will plot between the mean and the upper end of the standard deviation. So 68% of the entire population will plot here, 33.5% above and 33.5% below the normative number. And that's different for each one of them. It's really important that you get that, because as you read your graph, you're going to want to know a number of things. Which motivator has the highest score above the mean? So it's not just the numeric highest score, but which one is the furthest above or the furthest below the mean? Because that's what you want to know. In this case, this individual has 3 scores that are quite high above the mean. This one, and this one. And they also have 2 scores that are at the lower end of the general population. So it's important to remember that we're influenced not only by our highest scoring ones, but also by our lowest scoring ones, because these things are not important to us. So if you have a low altruistic score, as this sample does, you can expect that this individual is not going to make his or her decisions on a regular basis in terms of how they're going to help other people. Very important part of the understanding of the motivators. So write down the motivator that's highest for you above the mean, not just the highest score, but the furthest away from the mean. And also note the lowest scoring one. Now this is a good example, because even though this number is 31 and this number is 30, you can see there's more distance here than there is here. So this is the lowest scoring one right here, because it has the most distance from the midpoint, the mean, or the median. And now the rest of the report is going to present each of your 7 motivators in great detail. This really gives you a tremendous insight into yourself. It shows you the general traits that you have based upon your score for this particular driver. It shows you how that particular score works to your advantage, whether it's a high score or a low score. And low scores can work to your advantage if the way in which they function align with the needs of the job. It also shows you the motivational insights based upon your score for this particular driver, the training and learning insights, and finally the continual improvement insights. A tremendous amount of inside information allowing you to understand yourself in a way that you may never have done before. This is available for each one of the motivators, and we want to encourage you. This is not just a quick read that you're going to put on the shelf. This is an important component for you to really understand as you're making these key decisions about the rest of your career, the rest of your life. So understand yourself. Make an investment of time and effort to really understand yourself. It will pay such handsome dividends. This descriptive pattern is presented for each of your 7 motivators. And make some notes on them as you go through them. Things that you think are most relevant, put a star or an asterisk beside the things that you think are really yours. And remember that some of the motivators are active because they're strong, and some because they're weak. So as you print this report, you're going to want to take a look at where your scores are, and then you're going to want to list them 1 through 7 so that you're clear on where your hierarchy is. And you're going to do this because thanks to a tool, Patil, we have created 6 engineering benchmarks for you. And here's what they look like. So if you understand your primary, your 1 through 7 motivators, you can quickly compare them to these 6 engineering models. First one is the design engineer. The primary workplace drivers for this model is the theoretical and the aesthetic. The primary one for the development engineer is political, economic, and regulatory. All 3 of these score very high in this particular model. The management model is looking primarily for the economic, the political, and the regulatory driver. The operations engineer looks for theoretical, political, and economic. And the production engineer looks for political and regulatory. And finally, the research engineer, not surprisingly, looks for theoretical, aesthetic, and individualistic. So it's important you understand that each one of these drivers plays a role in each one of these engineering opportunities. Understanding how closely you fit to these 6 different models will give you some guidance. Now understand this is not the only thing that you want to determine, but it's one of the components that will help you understand, am I going to be a great fit for this type of engineering, or would I be better here, or would I be better there? Otherwise, you're going to have to spend 1.5 years in the job to define, well, maybe I like this, maybe I don't. So this should make your job of selection much easier as you go. Finally, the second to last page of this report gives you a little bit of an overview. As you look at your report, find the drivers that are most powerful for you. That is, the ones that are the highest and the furthest from the norm. Because remember, it can either be a very high scoring one or a very low scoring one. List those 2 here. And then if you're already working, take a look at your first motivator and see how it would satisfy the current job that you're in. Is it a good fit or not a good fit? The same for the motivator. Maybe it's a lower scoring one. Is it a good fit for you? Yes or no? The relative strength of your drivers are seen here. Furthest from the mean, not the numeric score. The furthest from the mean are the ones that carry the greatest influence on you versus the rest of the general population. So let's look at this motivator summary. Your highest motivators are influential because they're so important to you, and you will seek opportunities and take actions in an attempt to satisfy them. Your lowest scoring motivators are also influential because they're not so important to you. Because you subordinate them, they make a contribution to the opportunities that you seek and the actions you take by their absence. And remember, because they are lower scoring, they can serve to amplify the influence of your higher scoring ones. This tutorial will remain online and available to you. You can review it as many times as you like. Take some time with your report. Read it carefully. Understand yourself. Review your hierarchy of the strongest and the least strong motivators, as they will assist you in understanding why certain actions and results are attractive to you. They'll satisfy you. You feel good about things at the end of the day, and why some actions do not deliver that same feeling. The goal is to enable you to leverage your knowledge in an opportunity that can best align with your natural motivators and drivers. And remember that there are no perfect fits. This is a guideline. It will give you an inclination how the particular company feels to you, how the person you're interviewing with feels to you, how this company's product line and what they're doing, if it interests you. That's going to go a very long ways. And if you can match that with what you've learned here about your internal motivators, you're going to avoid some serious mistakes that can be so painful over time. This concludes the part 1 tutorial around your workplace drivers. Again, print page 5 from this report, as you'll need it to review and compare your scores with the 6 different benchmarks. Now you can view the benchmarks in greater detail at this address here, people-chemistry.us/ENG-benchmarks. Notice capital E, capital B. So copy this address correctly, and you'll be able to compare your scores to the 6 benchmarks in greater detail. Now, the second piece, when you're ready, that we've prepared for you is the DISC behavioral tutorial. This one is going to deal with your natural behavioral style. That's how dominant, outgoing, patient, and compliant or comprehensive you are as you go about delivering your workplace drivers into the world. That tutorial can be accessed at this address here. Again, people-chemistry.us/behavior-tutorial. I hope you found this helpful. You can always give us some feedback from the tutorial pages, and we wish you all the best, and again encourage you to invest some time in yourself. It will be one of the best investments you'll ever make. Thanks for visiting. Best of luck. Bye-bye now.